methods, not only just in our online environment, but also specifically in our IVYC110IL environment. So the reason why we have been going ahead with our online faculty certification program, even though it's been in our Blackboard platform for the past semester, is because we want to make sure that you're actually getting the teaching strategies that you need to teach online. Because this course is not about buttonology. It's not about how you push the buttons. There's some of that in there on how you can use those particular tools, but we really want to concentrate on the things that are across any platform, but especially in the online environment. What is important? How do we teach? What is that content we're teaching? And how do we apply our teaching strategies, our personalities in that online environment? Okay, so today we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the communication tools, why they're used and how they're used. And I'm going to try to display that for you as much as possible in our IVYC110 environment. Okay? So let's jump right in. The first thing we're going to talk about is our synchronous tools. So GoToWebinar, for example, is a synchronous tool, and what that means is that we're all online at the same time communicating in some format. Okay. So synchronous tools, we're never going to require a student to interact with us through a synchronous tool unless that's how the class was advertised. So we do have several classes like Math 123, for example, where we use GoToTraining, for example, to deliver that course. It's online. Students know that's what they're registering for. How we use our synchronous tools in a traditional online class or even in a online traditional or hybrid section, these are used for office hours. This is used for study sessions where you want to be available to walk your students through a certain situation or even through one-on-one counseling. Okay, so what we're in right now is we are using GoToWebinar. There's also a GoToMeeting, which most of you might already have experienced. GoToMeeting allows for screen sharing. It allows for all the tools that we're using here today, but it is for an audience of 25 people or less. So that's typically what we use as a faculty member. We post that GoToMeeting time. We meet online. Students come in with their microphones open. They can ask questions. You can walk them through a PowerPoint. You can walk them through your coursework online. There's a lot of different things that you can do. It's very, very easy. GoTo products also have a GoToWebinar, which is what we're using today. Typically, everyone in a GoToWebinar, this is for large audiences, so I use this a lot for statewide training sessions. I've had up to 500 to 600 people in a session at one time. Okay, so we don't want a bunch of audio. We want people to be able to participate so they get to watch and they also get to participate through the question panel to answer questions at any time. Okay, so it has a little extra features. The GoToWebinar also has a polling system, so you can ask questions at any time and have students respond to that. I can also post handouts using the GoToWebinar feature that allows students to access that and download that to the computer. So I know that Harry has participated in some of our statewide IVYLearn training sessions. So GoToWebinar is a product that he's a little bit more familiar with, but we try to use those as much as possible for training. And then GoTo also has a product called GoToTraining, which allows for breakout sessions. So if you're teaching Math 123 online, for example, that is what you would use to teach that. It's an online where we can go through the math problems, or we can group our students into small groups so that they can work together as teams to complete that event. So synchronous tools. The average faculty member, online faculty member, we're going to use this for office hours. Okay, or we can also use Google Hangouts. So you notice when we were on Blackboard, we started doing that Blackboard instant messaging tool. Okay, so you might have used that in the past as well. BBIM allows faculty and students to interact with each other, peer-to-peer, also to student to faculty, and also to students to different departments in the college. Okay, it was an instant messaging tool. You type in a message, someone responds immediately back to you. That's something that we've used in the past as a tool for office hours. Now we're moving over to Google Hangouts. So how do you get there? You go to myiv.ivtech.edu, and when you log in, over here on the left-hand side, you'll see this little item called Google Hangouts. It's very simple to use. I've actually did some training on this, and I've also put a link to that training in Blackboard for you if you want to explore this a little bit more in depth. But this allows me to have interactions with one student at a time or multiple students. I can message students. When I click that, it allows me to see who's online. These are people I've communicated with in the past. If there was a little green dot, that would mean that they were currently online, and I could message them. Okay. When I do, this little window pops up, and I just communicate with them back and forth. Okay. It's a social media tool. You might have even used this in your personal life. Here in the next couple weeks, I want you to keep an eye on your email, because we will be sending out instructions on how you can download an application, a desktop application. So when we use this, you'll see a little icon on the bottom of your screen that allows you, if someone contacts you or there's someone trying to message you, you'll get a little pop-up here on the bottom of your screen. So watch out for those instructions on how to get that downloaded on your computer. But this is what we're going to use as online instructors to communicate with our students. So say if we're sitting in doing office hours, or we want to be grading something, we can just open that up and wait for students to contact us. We can also schedule times as well. It's very self-explanatory. It's very easy to use. I can also call you or do a video call. The video call allows me to use my webcam, and we can communicate back and forth. Now, the thing to remember with GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, GoToTraining, or even in our Google Hangouts, anytime you add an additional element, such as a webcam, you really are adding another layer of complexity. It also takes up a little bit more bandwidth. Okay, so really think about when you're planning a synchronous session, especially if you're going to do, you're preparing students for finals, or you just want to do some review of content. Think about who your audience is, what is it that you want them to see, and why is it important. So for example, if I'm just doing a demonstration today about communication tools in the IvyLearn platform, it's not really necessary for you to see me, my picture, my webcam. It's more important for you to see the tools that we're talking about today. Now, if I was a computer science instructor and Bill Gates was coming to do a guest lecture for me online, and all of our students, or even as a classroom, I'm going to log in and he's going to be our guest lecturer, well, he's a pretty famous person. I want to see him. So that would be a case where if I have this wonderful guest speaker, I want to use that webcam so we can see him and see his facial features and hear his lecture. Okay, so you just think about how you're using this tool, what content you're sharing. Any questions about synchronous tools? Just give me a quick yes or no in the question box. Let me know if you have any questions or if we're okay to move on. Thank you, Candace. Thank you. All right, I appreciate the feedback. At any time, if you would like to ask a question using your microphone, I will try to keep monitoring that in the attendees list, and you can just raise your hand, and I'll try to call on you that way and open up your microphone. The reason why I don't, even though we're a small group today, the reason why I don't want to open up everyone's microphone, if your office is like mine, there's a lot of people coming in and out, or if you're at home today, we often get the dog barking in the background. I'm sure you've either seen that YouTube spoof on phone conferences or even been a part of one where you get all kinds of external noises, or someone puts you on hold and you hear the music in the background as well. So that's the reason why we're keeping our microphones closed until it's your turn to ask a question. Okay. All right, so that's synchronous tools. Let's go into our IvyLearn platform. When you log into IVYLearn for the first time, you're going to see a global navigation menu on the left-hand side. It opens up by default to the dashboard. And then you also have this great communication tool on the right-hand side, which is a to-do list. This to-do list is available to you as an instructor and also to our students. So what this does is it's driven by due dates. Okay, so the student can see at a global level all of their classes at one time. So Susie's student logs in and she says, oh, you know what? I'm taking 3 or 4 classes. These assignments are coming up immediately. So it helps the student stay on track of what's coming up. It also helps you, if you're teaching multiple sections of a course, you can see what due dates are coming up as well. Now, from the faculty perspective, what is really cool is you see these little numbers here. It's a little green circle with a 1, a little green circle with a 3. This allows you at a glance to look at all of your courses and know that I have 3 assignments that need to be graded for Module 7, Exam 1. I have 1 assignment that needs to be graded for Module 10 lab assignment. Okay, so it's a great way, instead of having to log into the course, click on the Grade Center, scroll through the actual item itself, and to find who needs graded. This is a wonderful at-a-glance tool. I think you'll really like it. It will save you some time, both as a traditional faculty member and as an online instructor. So very, very cool. I'll show you what that looks like. When I click on that little 1, it takes me immediately to that into SpeedGrader. I see the student's assignment. It tells me the submission was late. I can enter in a grade right here. Then I can also add a comment for my student. Okay, so as we're talking about communication, I want to point out to you that grading feedback and communicating with your students within 36 hours are some of the most important things you're going to do as an online instructor. Students want to be heard. They want to be heard, and they want you to respond back to them as soon as possible. So when you think about our online students, they're usually working adults. They usually have children and other responsibilities. We have students who are accessing the online platforms in the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, constantly. So it's important for you to get into a habit, and when we talk about that communication plan that we're doing in our course, you want to make sure that you're planning when, every day, what's my time commitment? When am I going to be checking for that correspondence? How frequently am I going to be checking that correspondence? Because you want to make sure that you're following policy and getting back to them within 36 hours or less. And that 36 hours does include weekends and even holidays. So really keep that in mind. Okay? Grading, when you're doing grading, you want to make sure that you're responding back to students. You're getting those papers graded within 7 days. Okay, that's kind of the typical guideline. If you run into a trouble, you just want to make sure that you communicate that with your students immediately, okay, and let them know. We'll talk a little bit about grading feedback and how that communication continues throughout the semester in multiple different ways as we continue our presentation today. But since right now we're in the SpeedGrader and we got there from our home page, that dashboard page, I want to point out to you one of my favorite tools, new tools here in the IVYLearn platform. So I'm giving the student a grade, and I'm going to deduct a few points because she was late, and it'll tell me right here that this was late. Okay. I can add a comment. I can type it, and you see I'm a terrible typist, so that's not very good. But there's also this little icon right here. I could use my webcam, and I could give them a video response. So I could just talk into my webcam and do that. Now just remember, anytime you use video in your course, you want to make sure that you have a script or that video is closed captioned, because we want to make sure we're meeting those accessibility standards. Okay, so you might remember when we talked about personalizing your course content in Module 3 of the self-paced courses, or Module 4, I forget which one it is, we talked about transcribing those narrated PowerPoints, that we always have a script for our students to be able to read it as well as see it. But the cool thing here is this little button, this little microphone, and this microphone will only appear if you have one attached to your computer, And this allows you to give grading feedback using speech to text. Okay, so I have my microphone. I'm going to click record. This was really great work, period. You used a great sense of color and space, period. Please just make sure that you follow the deadlines. And if you're going to miss them, please let me know immediately, period. You'll see now that what I just used my microphone for transferred over here to my comments. I then can read through it. Does this make sense? I can, add the capitalization. For whatever reason, it doesn't always do that. I can delete. I can add to it. And then once I'm done, I click the Submit button, and this is now recorded for the student. Okay, so this is an easy way to give grading feedback. Harry shares with us in the question box. As a program chair, he gets a lot of this, and of course teaching the hybrid environment. He said students go to the top over the lack of timely communication just about more than anything else, and I have to agree with Harry. He's had that experience before. Students love to say, my teacher didn't tell me, or they didn't get back to me, so make sure you're planning accordingly for that time. Okay, so let's go back to that global view. Okay, so I'm back on my dashboard. And again, how I accessed that speed grader was right here from this front page where I have a to-do list over here and I know what needs graded. Okay, this is also available to students. You can also see what's coming up. You can also delete these messages by clicking the little X. Okay. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do as faculty members to start that communication foundation, and it is a policy requirement, we are going to create our user profile. The user profile is created over here on the left-hand side, the global navigation menu, when we click the account button. Okay. There's the profile button, and we're going to add our contact information here. We're going to add a biography, and we're going to add a picture. To add the picture, you'll see this little pencil icon. This pencil icon is used throughout the whole IvyLearn system. Anytime you see the pencil, that means you can edit, customize, or add content. When I click that, I can upload a picture from my storage space. I can take a picture with my webcam, or for some of our faculty who have used the Canvas environment at other institutions, they might have used Gravatar. I personally haven't used that yet, but if you are familiar with it, you are welcome to use that right here. You upload your picture, and it fills in this little button for you. To edit your content here and add your contact information and add your biography, over here on the right-hand side, you'll see an Edit Profile button, which takes you into the text box editor. This is very important. This profile picture, this link to my profile, will be seen multiple times through the IvyLearn platform. Anytime I post grading feedback in the Grade Center, the student will see my face and my profile link. If I post anything in the discussion board, they'll see my face, they'll see my link. Same thing with announcements. If I post an announcement to my class, if I send them a message, which is also called conversations in the IvyLearn platform, they'll see my picture and my name. Now, why does this become important? In the online environment, for the longest time, people have felt dehumanized by technology. Okay, so who is this nameless, faceless person? And there's a lot of research that goes into it, and several of you, if you've been to any of my training sessions, you might have heard me say this before, but in layman terms, if you think about it, a nameless, faceless person calls you on the phone, the telemarketer, and asks you if you want to have an estimate on your windows or home repairs. No, don't bother me, maybe not even that polite. You hang up on them. Little Susie from next door is knocking on your door, and she's selling Girl Scout cookies. Okay, and even though you're on the diet and your class reunion is coming up soon, you're going to have a harder time saying no to that person who's looking you in the eye and trying to sell you Girl Scout cookies. It's that human connection. So when we try to build retention, we start to build our learning community, we want to identify with our students and kind of humanize the experience. Okay. The other thing too, how many of you have ever got to the end of the semester or a student has talked to you about an instructor or something going on in another class and you're like, well, who is your teacher? And they can't even tell you the person's name. And it's week 15, okay? Unfortunately, that happens. This will be another way to make that connection with our students, and the same way that we're going to try to interact with our students. We want them to be creating their profile picture as well. So we're going to do that first off when we access the Ivy Learn platform. We're also going to set up our notifications. Notifications is a very powerful tool, both for you as a faculty member and also for students. Okay, so what the notification preferences do is, like anytime there is any change in any of these course activities, due dates, grading policies, and the list goes on, any changes in the discussion boards, any conversations, which are also known as messages, any changes in the schedule, any changes in groups, alerts, or conferences, you will be notified based on your personal settings. Okay, so I can choose to be notified right away. I can choose to be sent a daily summary. I can choose to have a weekly summary sent to me, or I can choose to not send me anything. Okay, I can also set up how I want to be notified. So maybe I want to be notified through my email, which is my Ivy Tech email address. This is here by default. My Gmail account, my mobile devices, and my cell phone number. These 3 columns are customizable, and I added these. If you do choose to be notified through a text message, that information is never shared with the student. This is just your personal way you want to be notified. So as a faculty member, if I change a due date, I don't necessarily need to be notified about that, right? It's not necessarily something, but as a student, I might want to be notified right away. So the student would choose to be notified right away. I would want to go through all of this and say, maybe if someone sends me a message in conversations, I might want to be notified right away, and I might receive a text message on that. So it's very, very flexible and very customizable for you as a faculty member and for our students. This will really help our students stay on track. The online environment is even more challenging than a face-to-face or hybrid section because you don't have to be in class. You don't have to face that instructor and let them know. It's easier to kind of procrastinate in an online environment, unfortunately, unless you really have due dates and good time management skills. Okay. Now, by default, this notification system is set up to notify me right away through your Ivy Tech email account about every single one of these items here. So you will want to spend some time kind of tweaking this a little bit, and you'll probably tweak it more than once. I know that when I first started using the Ivy Learn platform and we were learning how to use it, my email blew up with all these notifications about people who were trying new things, and I was enrolled in a bunch of classes because we were practicing and learning. Okay? Even if a student suggests I do not want to be sent anything, they will still receive conversations or messages, okay, over here in the inbox. Okay, so this is a global navigation tool, and the inbox is also a policy requirement. We are going to be using the inbox, what's also known as conversations, to communicate with our students. So if you've been here for a while and you've used our statewide template, or if you remember in the earlier self-paced modules when you had to create your syllabus document, there was a choice between email or messages, okay? That's no longer an option. You're going to do everything here under conversations, and I think you're going to like it. So not only when I send this message here from conversations, the student is going to get notified in the manner that they choose, but there will also be a record of it here in the inbox in the actual Ivy Learn platform. I can sort this by all my courses or by individual courses, In my inbox, I can just look at anything that's unread. Okay. I can see things that are starred. I can see what messages I've sent. Now, you'll see here, I look like a horrible person that I've got 38 new messages here. But I've actually been responding back through my email. So I have a notification that if anyone contacts me here through IVLearn, that I get that in my email. I can respond back to the student through my email account, and it still captures all of that here in the conversations area. So very, very powerful. Okay, so I'm giving immediate response back to my students, and I can do that in the manner that I choose. This is the coolest part. I'm going to send this message, compose a new message. I can select the course that the person is in that I want to communicate with. So, for example, I'm going to go to, I'll just use my demo course here. Okay, I can do two things. I can use this little icon over here to search all of the records. Okay, I can send a message to everyone in the course. I can do it to specific people or students. I can also type in the name. So I know Kara is one of my students and Matthew is one of my students, and okay. So say I'm teaching a class and my students have not logged in yet. So in the online environment, we know we want students to be in attendance. They have to actually complete an academic event. So they have to do an assignment and earn a grade for it. It's not enough just to log into the system. So I'm going to say, you know what, Kara, Matthew, and Lena have not logged in, and I'm getting ready to drop them for non-attendance. Okay, I can write one message in this one central location. Okay, I can write their message here. I'm writing this message one time. I select this thing, send an individual message to each recipient. It now sends this message to each one of these individuals. So instead of having to create each individual message through email or even through the Blackboard messaging tool, I can now write one message, send it out to multiple people, and by selecting this little tab, it keeps it confidential, it sends it directly to that individual person, and we can communicate one-on-one at that point. Okay, so pretty powerful and pretty cool and a huge, huge time saver. The other cool thing about this is that Kara, Matthew, and Lena are going to receive that notification that I sent them that message through their telephone, through their IVY Tech email, or through a personal email account based on their notification preferences. Okay. Everyone still with me? Everybody's still feeling good? Any questions? Okay, great. Thank you for responding. I appreciate that. Everybody says they're doing good and no questions at this point. Okay. All right, so we know that policy requires us to set up our profile and our notifications. We know that policy is going to require us to use, and this is all faculty across the board, regardless if they're teaching online, hybrid, or traditional classes. We're also required as faculty teaching in all delivery formats to use the due dates, okay, for all of our assignments. Okay, this is especially important in our online environment. Everything will have a due date. Okay, and if you didn't know, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but each one of these dashboards have an assigned color to it. Okay, and each one of these colors corresponds with the calendar. Okay, so you'll see there's a list of all these color blocks over here on the right-hand side, and each one of these colors corresponds with an assignment for that class. Okay. You can actually build assignments here in the calendar. You can also drag and drop. Okay, so if I want to change a date, I can drag and drop that. This changes throughout the whole IVLearn platform. So due dates drive that to-do list on that front page. Remember on that dashboard we have that to-do list where we also access the Grade Center as a faculty member. It also populates the calendaring system here. It also populates how you view the Grade Center, because the Grade Center populates by due date or by category. Okay, so the due dates are very, very important. This also is what helps students stay on track, stay engaged in the course. Now, you can, because you can create assignments here in the calendar, you can also delete assignments here. So if you delete this calendar item, it's actually going to delete the assignment in your course. So be very, very careful anytime you delete something from the calendar system. Okay, so this is another communication tool. All right, let's actually go into a course because we've talked about global communication tools. Let's go into the course and let's talk about the course communication tools that we'll be using. So I'm just grabbed right into my demo course. So probably one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to use the announcement tool. Now in Blackboard, when you've been practicing in your practice shell, you know that you post the discussion, or excuse me, the announcement page. This is what we're going to be doing this week. Don't forget finals are coming up. Give me your proctor information. We're going on a field trip, whatever it is. You use that announcement just like you would in a traditional classroom at the beginning or end of the class. You know, those announcements you want all your students to hear. The cool thing about IVLearn announcements is they're actually interactive, okay? So I'm going to select one of these tools, these announcements that I've already created, just so you can see that, okay? So I've created this assignment, or actually this announcement, excuse me, and I can reply to this announcement. So students can actually reply to my announcement. It's now an interactive tool and not just a static piece of text. Okay, so you'll notice on my announcement, here's my profile picture again and a link to my profile. Okay, the student, I'm pretending I'm a student here. I've posted my I'm glad to be here too. And you'll see that the student's profile picture also appears. I can now use this announcement tool as an interactive assignment. So there's two ways that I can see you right off the top trying to use this tool. One, if you're going to do a study session, or you're going to do office hours, or you're trying to figure out a time that's good for people, you could actually send a message out here on announcement, hey, I'm thinking about doing some office hours. What day works for you? So in this particular announcement I created down here, that's exactly what I did. And I actually added a little video message here to my students as well. I will be available online for a study session. What day works for you? Students can now respond back to me, and I can kind of just do a quick poll on when I want to schedule that session with my students. The other way that you might want to use this is we are trying to encourage all of our students to set up that user profile. Let's see if I can. Nope. Okay. So one of the things that you can do when you create an announcement is you can add a video. So for example, in this particular example, I've added this IVLearn function junction, and it's a 30 minutes or less video about how to set up your user profile, how to log in, and how to navigate through the system. Just very generic basics for the students. Okay. I can also say, after watching this video, please confirm you have set up your profile by replying below. So I've given them an assignment. Let's read that. Let's watch this. Make sure you've set it up, and then they can reply. And then as an instructor, I know if they've done it or not because I'll be able to see their picture and a link to their profile. Okay, so just a couple different ways that you can use this announcement tool. It's very, very simple to set up an announcement tool in IVLearn. When you click plus announcement, this is our faculty view. So plus announcement, I give it a topic. This is my content editor. I can add a picture or an image. I can add a video, I can add my own webcam, I can also type a message. Okay, so any way that you want to use it, it's very, very simple to use and very straightforward. Okay. Now, under the options, this is a new feature in the IVLearn platform. Users must post before seeing replies. Okay, so maybe I've asked some kind of critical question. I can actually have the students have to post an original thought or a response to that before they can see what their classmates have posted. Okay, so I might send out a generic message, please give me your reflections or the top 3 things that you liked about today's presentation. And then I would select users must post before seeing replies. So before you can be influenced by your peers, you could actually have to tell me what your true top 3 things that you liked out of the presentation first before seeing what other people said. Okay, so kind of a nice thing when you're trying to get students to have original thought and not try to just copy other students' work. You can also allow liking. This is something that's new too in this platform. So if you've ever used Facebook, this is kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down type of option. And of course, just click Save. So that's announcements. You can also set up delay the posting. Okay, that was also available in Blackboard. So if I'm going to get really ambitious and I wanted to create those announcements, those weekly announcements. So this week we're going to be talking about genetics. And I want to give a little few details about that. And then I want to do that for each week. I can set that up ahead of time. So when I'm preparing my course, I can set that up with due dates for release and kind of work with that a little bit more. Candace asked the question, when or how would you use the enable podcast feed? I don't necessarily podcast, but if you were doing a podcast lecture, you could actually add that link using that functionality, that tool that was in our options here. Okay, enable podcast feed. And when you do that, a little speaker kind of pops up when it's in the text. Okay, great question. Okay, other communication tools, we're going to use our announcements. We're also going to use discussion boards. So discussion boards are a common tool used in the online platform. Unfortunately, they're not usually used to its fullest potential. Okay, so a lot of faculty, oh, man, that's just something that they have to do, but something that I don't have to do, and that's not true. The discussion board is really a rich, wonderful opportunity for you to share and to teach. Okay, so in the discussion board, we've experimented with that this week using our introductions. So almost every online course has that introduction discussion board. This is when we start building that learning community, that peer-to-peer instruction, and we also start building our relationship with our students. Okay? So you want to respond back to students. You want to participate in those discussion boards as well as have students participating in that. So a discussion board typically requires one original post and at least a minimum of 2 other interactions with students in your course. Okay, we want that conversation to be more than I agree or what he said type of commentary. Okay, so the questions are usually more than a yes/no. And students should really interact with students. Discussion boards, although typically used in the online world, can also be used in the hybrid or traditional section. So if you think about this, you always have those 1 or 2 students in the traditional classroom who raise their hand, they're very communicative, they want to answer the questions, they want to ask questions here and there, they want to participate. Wonderful, fabulous students. But then you have those other students who kind of hang back a little bit. They're not as comfortable talking in front of their peers. They're a little bit more shy or nervous about it. Also, as an instructor, we have limited time to get all our lecture out there and all the activities that we need to do with our students. So there's not enough time for every single person to participate. Discussion boards are a great way to keep that conversation going, to think critically, to debate, to discuss. Okay. One of my favorite examples of how a discussion board is used comes from our fire science department. So they have this website that has all of these fires that they report on from all around the world. So you'll see, this fire took place in such and such. These people responded and what they did to contain the fire, and how much damage was done. It's kind of almost like it's for firemen to learn from and to share stories with. So a lot of times the fire science faculty will say, pick out a story, and they'll give that scenario to the students in the discussion board. Okay, so there was a 4-alarm fire in a 4-story building. We weren't sure what was housed in that building, if it was just residential or what products were being housed in this warehouse. We only had these limited resources. Okay, so the fire science instructor can kind of, this is what happened in this fire department. What would you do if you had these resources available to you? So the student has to read the article, and then they have to think about how would they handle that situation with the resources allocated to them. Then the instructor, who is actually a fireman, can add their expertise. They add to the discussion, and they share their experiences. Sometimes we have fires that are larger than we can contain or have hazardous materials. We have a fire department of 20 volunteers. So we had to do this. We had to use these resources, and we had to call in these people, and this is how it affected the budget and all these kinds of things. So it's a real-life experience and a great way for you as an instructor to help teach those students. Okay? Even in accounting, a lot of times, or even in math, why do I need to know this? What is the real-world application to this? Great way for you to participate in the discussion board to give that some life experience and true application. Okay, so discussion boards could be used by anyone, anywhere, and as an online faculty instructor, I highly encourage you to use this as your teaching moment. So this is the discussion board area. Oops, I'm sorry. I didn't actually go into a discussion. Let me show what a discussion board looks like. Okay. So this is an example of a discussion board introduction, very similar to what we did in our class. Okay. And when someone responds back to the discussion board, this is a great example how we can see all of our students' profiles and pictures. Okay. So again, making this a human connection. Okay. Now we would have a lot more content than this if we were conducting a true discussion board. This demonstration was just used to see how the tool worked and what happened when you interacted with the tool. So that is discussion boards. Any questions, comments, or thoughts about that? Okay. Now I know we're getting to the end of our hour here, and I know that everyone has a very busy schedule. So there are several communication tools that we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time on today. But I encourage you to take a look at them at your convenience. There's this chat feature, and in the chat feature in the IVLearn platform, this allows you to post something even if someone's not online. So this would be an asynchronous event, and this is historically kept. So you'll see this chat has been going on with all my demo students for the past several months. This is not a private method of communication. Okay, this is available to anyone can see this conversation going on who's registered in this class. So this chat feature, if you choose to use that in your IVLearn course, is not private, okay, but it is an option for you to use. We also have things called collaborations, which allows you to work on a Google document together. We have this thing called conferences. I don't recommend it as much. It's very similar to a synchronous session, what we would use GoToMeeting for, or even our Google Hangouts, because it only will record for up to 2 weeks, and then you lose that content. Okay. All right, I have a question here. Candace says, in Ivy Learn, to create a discussion board, does it have to be created as an assignment? Is there an option not to grade? There is an option not to grade. I will tell you that typically when those discussion board forums are automatically created for you in the courses, they're typically graded. If it's not for a grade, you will have students who will not necessarily participate. Okay, so let's talk just a brief minute before I show you my favorite feature in the Ivy Learn platform. The Center for Instructional Technology maintains a statewide library of online courses of over 300 courses. Okay, so there's 300 courses that we maintain here. It's a standardized course. All of the online sections for those particular courses are loaded and are available for you. You're going to load that content yourself using Commons. That's for another day, another discussion. Okay. Even in the region, if you're teaching a regional online course, those courses should already be created for you. You should not be teaching in the online environment and creating your own content as you go along. That is not best practices. Okay, and that's not something that you should be put in the position of. Okay. I just want to make sure that you should have course content available to you, especially as a first-time online instructor. Okay. All of our statewide courses in the library are based on Quality Matters. Quality Matters is a national standards and rubric for that covers things like easy navigation for students and the alignment of objectives with assessments. Okay. This doesn't mean that you can't customize or change content located in the online course, because you can. This is something new. This is a new policy that just came out the last couple of months. Harry might remember that for the longest time, people were under the impression that you could not change anything in the online courses. That's been spelled out differently now in policy. So if you don't like a discussion board question, you can change that discussion board question to something that's more appropriate for you. It still has to align with the objectives, but you can add a different question. The thing that you cannot do is that you cannot add additional points. So you can't just say, oh, I like these 4 discussion boards that have already been created for me, and I'm going to create a 5th one for a grade. You can't change the point scale. You can't change how much the assignments are worth. Okay, so it's kind of an even exchange. If I don't like this particular project, I can change that project out for another one, but I can't change the points possible. Okay, so it's kind of a new policy. Instructors can also use library content from the library for traditional and hybrid sections as well. So you can use this content, you just need to customize that to fit. I know that can be very confusing for the first-time online instructor. So if you have additional questions later after you start thinking about that, feel free to email me or give me a call and we'll talk about it in a little bit more depth. Okay. All right. We're a little bit over, but I want to show you my favorite tool in the whole Ivy Learn platform. And it comes under grades. Okay, so on the course menu, both students and faculty access the grades in the same location. The platform will recognize your role. So if you're an instructor, you get to see the whole grade center here. And if you're a student, you just see your individual grades. From a communication perspective, I can actually click on this student's name, and it gives me like a little dashboard. I can see her grades, I can see some analytics, the last 10 graded items, how much she's participated, how many pages she's viewed. And I can also message the student right here from the Grade Center. So when I click this, I'm actually creating a conversation. And remember, conversations are here in the inbox, and the student receives that through the notification process that they've selected. Okay, but this is an easy way that I can communicate with the student right here within the Grade Center instead of having to go out of the system. So kind of cool. But here's the cherry on the top of the ice cream sundae. I go to the column, okay, and in this column there's a pull-down menu with several different options, but what I want to talk to you about today from the communication standpoint is this message students who ... When I click message students who ... there's a pull-down menu. So this is, the assignment is Module 1 homework, and I can message students who haven't submitted their homework assignment yet. So message students who haven't submitted yet. IVYLearn takes the guesswork out. Okay, so instead of me going through the Grade Center, identifying any missing assignments, then trying to send them each an individual message, I can make one message and I can reach out to all of these students. Okay, so all of these people in this course have not submitted Module 1 yet, their homework assignment. It automatically populates this submission or homework assignment, the title line. I enter my message here, and I click Send Message. Again, I compose one message, and it goes out to multiple people. Those folks are going to get that message through the notification system that they've created, as well as in their inbox over here on the Global Navigation menu. Okay. I can also, from this pull-down menu, send a message to students who haven't been graded yet. So when we were talking a little bit earlier about trying to get everything graded within that 7-day period, especially at midterms and any final projects at that last week, sometimes we get behind. So if I'm grading through and I've got halfway through the class, I can quickly send a message to the students who haven't been graded yet. And I might say, hey, I apologize, I haven't graded your assignment yet. I'll try to get to that completed within the next 48 hours. Again, what do students talk about? What do they ask most questions about? When are you going to post my grade? When am I going to receive a grade? Okay, so you want to make sure that you're communicating with those students on a regular basis. So if you run into a little delay, you can also message students who haven't been graded yet. I can also, from this pull-down menu, select students who scored less than, and I enter the point value. So this is a great way for me as an instructor to close that learning gap. So say I'm teaching fractions, for example, and I have these students who didn't really understand that particular assignment. Okay, they didn't get that, didn't quite grasp it, or at least their score didn't show that they grasped it. I could send them a message here. I could, refer them to tutor.com for more tutoring assistance. I could even send them to a YouTube video or to the Khan Academy, and I can give them some additional resources or even refer them back to something in the course or the textbook to help them gain that knowledge that they're going to need to continue to be successful in the class. So I like that. You can message students who scored less than. Closes the learning gap. I can also select a message for students who scored more than. So say we have students who scored higher than everybody else. I can send them a good job or a little, a little certificate or a badge or something like that, encouraging them to keep that up. Okay. My favorite tool, my absolute favorite tool, is being able to communicate with students in such an easy way. Lisa asked the question, just for clarification, do these messages go to the individual student, or can they see other students' names since there is not a box to click for individual message? It goes to each individual message. It goes to each individual. Okay, the students do not see each other's information. Okay, so Sylvia asked, is this a message to the students in a chat or an email? No, everything is communicated through the conversations. Okay, so I've just created a conversation, which is also a message within the system. Okay, so they'll get a record of it here in their inbox, but they will also, depending on their notification preferences, they will be notified through their email, their personal email, their mobile device, or their cell phone number, depending on how they set that up. Okay, so that the individual selects how they want to receive that communication. By default, it will always be a record of it here in the inbox. that does kind of conclude our time together. I do appreciate your time. I know I've just overloaded you with a lot of information, but we do have resources available to you. If you ever have a question about IVLearn, of course, we have all kinds of training sessions available online, but you can also go to this Help Center. It's located on the left-hand side of the page on the global menu. You can access the Canvas guides, which are amazing, very detailed on how to use each one of those tools. You can also go up here to our Faculty Resource Center. This is what's going to be replacing our Click for Help tab, which was located in Blackboard. The first time you access the Faculty Resource Center, it's going to ask you to request access. We want to make sure that only instructors gain access to this particular area. But it's our own faculty community. So you'll see a lot of helpful links and information over here. You'll see ongoing tips and tricks on how to use IVLearn from people in the community, other faculty members and staff. Okay, a lot of good information. Here's some information. Tomorrow we're going to be doing a Q&A session, or excuse me, on Friday. Oh, that is tomorrow. Lost track of time. So there's lots of great information here. There's also the codes that you need to use Lockdown Browser and some of that stuff that's applicable only to faculty members. So that, again, is accessed through that global menu in the IVLearn platform under Help.